you have to turn around and go backwards. Okay, I make that more challenging for you to do. And I really love the offensive lob. In fact, I'll tell you, you know, if you've ever seen any video of Stephanie Lane, she's the queen. If you want to see how to hit an offensive lob, go to YouTube, put in Stephanie's Lane's name, and she uses that all the time in pro level play. Pulls players off the back of the line, and I think it's a great thing. Did I answer it, Bob?
Hey, Tony, as an Into Pickle subscriber, I got to notice that you are live on YouTube. So I think you are.
CJ, I think we have it solved. I'm redirecting folks to another link.
Stream.
Yeah, just make it easier. So give them a second to get over there, and then we'll restart. And I apologize, everybody. You know, I wish I was better at YouTube. Next time, I guarantee I'll be better next time. But this time, that was a pop-up, and then I ran in behind it, and I got slammed with the ball, and not happy about it. But that happens. So.
Oh, we're live. You got it though. See, I do have to tell you this. Okay, so I'm gonna say hats off to you because Tony knows. Like I said, normally I run the tech end, and the only way you learn this stuff, just like what we're talking about with you guys today in pickleball, is you got to get out and do it.
I tested this thing like 3 or 4 times today. I did different things. I was like, yeah, I got it down, and whatever. Sorry, guys. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and Zoom. You're going to have to put up with just a little bit of repetition. I apologize for that. I want to welcome everybody this evening. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I think I have a little bit of sweat going, even though it's 74 degrees in my house. Anyway, so thanks for joining us. Thanks for putting up with this. You know, hopefully you'll get some value out of the content. I think you will. You know, we're really happy to have CJ with us tonight to go over a really interesting topic. It's really, you'll see how strategic it is and how, you know, it's such an important part of this game. I want to thank Lori again, even though I already did it for the Zoom folks, and Christy, who's on YouTube. They're both helping us moderate both sides of this this technological nightmare that I've created for myself this evening. But not their fault, my fault with the delay. Anyway, so thank you everybody for joining us. CJ, thanks for joining us. Why don't you introduce yourself again to the folks that are out on YouTube, even though the people on Zoom know you really well for the last 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of fun on Zoom. You missed the party, right? So I'm CJ Johnson. I live here in beautiful Lake Tahoe, and my channel is the Better Pickleball channel. And I was thrilled to join Tony to discuss this topic, because I think I was telling these folks here as we were talking before this actually started, is I think what happens at the non-volley zone line and how to force errors and how to cover the court, right? As a team, I think that maybe doesn't get talked enough about. It's kind of like if you were playing a game of chess, knowing how the pieces move and then knowing why you want to move the pieces in certain places. And I think that's what the non-volley zone can be. So thanks for having me on to talk about this, Tony.
Thank you, CJ. And definitely, I mean, that chess analogy is a really good one. I think analogy or metaphor, I always get those messed up, but you know what I mean? The chess conversation is a good way of looking at it. And so, you know, I'm going to let CJ frame out the NVZ in a second. But, you know, before we get to the NVZ, it's really important, everybody, that you have the basics down. In other words, if you're not hitting your return, your serve, your return, your third and your fourth shot, you're not getting to the NVZ dance or the puzzle or the battle, whatever you want to call it. So you really got to make sure you got those things down. You got to get past 4 is the way we look at it. You know, get past 4 every rally or as many as you can, so that then you can get into this really interesting, you know, chess match or puzzle that you're trying to solve. So CJ, why don't you give us a little bit of a framing of what we're trying to accomplish, just generally speaking. Once all 4 players at the NVZ line, no team has a distinct advantage because the positional advantages have been overcome. So everybody's up at the NVZ line. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
To me, my philosophy when I'm at the non-volley zone, all 4 of us are up there, is I'm trying to give you, my opponent, the opportunity to make a mistake. How do I force that? And while we're hitting dinks, right? Because I mean, let's remember the trajectory of a dink. I like to say it's kind of like a rainbow, right? That's the trajectory of a dink. While we're hitting those that particular trajectory, one of the easiest ways to make you make a mistake is to move you. Either I'm moving you side to side, so you're going to from, I'm trying to move you from foot to foot, or maybe I'm moving you forward and back, right? Maybe I'm pulling you in close to the net, or I'm pushing you back. So one thing is to make a player get that opportunity to make the error. The other thing is as we do that battle is, can I separate you as a team? Can I create a gap at the non-volley zone line that I could get a shot through? And that doesn't mean it has to be a hard hit shot.
Right.
If you have a big enough gap between players, a well hit dink that gets behind somebody is either going to go into the net or is going to force the pop up that we're looking for. So that's kind of to me, that's kind of the battle. How can I get you to make the mistake?
And I would agree. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I play, being under stress, I mean, you move me from left to right. If I'm moved from left to right, left to right, left to right, it's very stressful, and you have to reestablish your balance every time, get set for the shot, and recover. Because if I don't recover, then I know I'm leaving a gap. And I tell you one thing: when I'm the offensive player, I'm always looking for that gap. I'm looking for that gap that I can just shoot the ball in between. And try and get a point. One of the things that I wanted to touch on real quick, CJ, before we get into some video is, there's been a lot of conversation lately about the tethering. So, there's been like, the idea is like, do you tether, the two players tether like basically a static tether. So it's basically like a fixed tether. It's almost like they have a chain or rope between them. And if one player moves, the other player moves. I think that's a little bit too restrictive of a way to play. I like to think of it like more like an elastic sort of a tether. I do want some movement. I want a recognition by a player, and in the rallies today, we'll see some of the movement. Actually, every rally will have movement, so we'll be able to touch on it. But what I want to see is if this player moves out here, then perhaps this player moves a little bit, but definitely doesn't stay. Normally, isn't going to stay here if this player moves out. Maybe not exactly the same distance, but does kind of adjust based on movement of your partner, your partner's position, and the ball position is really important. So is the ball staying in front of my partner so that I have to watch for a ball coming this way, or is it coming all the way across? Now I have to move back to the left. So those are things that are, I think, super important. So, super important to deal with. So I'm gonna load up some points. But what do you think about that, CJ?
So to add to that tether is, I think it depends on the level you're at, and I agree with Tony. So when you first start playing pickleball, right, and you're maybe getting to that advanced stage, that advanced beginner, or that lower intermediate stage, it's really kind of feeling like you're staying with your partner, right? Then as you start to play better, I like to think about covering the non-volley zone line as I want to give my opponents the opportunity to hit the least desirable shot on the court. I want my partner and I to cover the easiest shots on the court. So we're going to cover the easiest shot. We're going to cover the second easiest shot, but we can't cover all the court. Right. And nobody's arms are quite that long. We can't cover all the court. So the part that I have to leave open is the part that's going to make you hit the toughest shot. And if you happen to hit that shot, I turn around and go, good shot, Tony. Right. But I'm trying to cover the easy stuff.
Correct. I agree. All right, I'm gonna put up the video here, and then maybe what you can do here, CJ, let me know if you can see the point all right here. You see is the point on your screen?
No.
Not yet. Okay, give me a second here.
Are you sharing?
I gotta press the second button.
Okay, there we go.
So I'm gonna start this up.
I'm seeing the point.
All right, good. I'm gonna start us off, and then maybe walk us through. This is a match. If you guys know Pickleball Podcast, you'll see on the right in a second, Eddie and Webby will show up. He was kind enough to give us this footage. And one thing I want to note before we start showing any footage is, neither CJ nor I mean to criticize any of the players that are in these videos that we're watching. We're very thankful that we're able to use the video to illustrate gameplay and things like that. So we definitely don't mean any criticism of any players. We're just trying to point out optimal play and play that could be improved. Okay. All right, TJ, I'm gonna let it roll.
Do you want to go through the whole point first? You want to let them see it and then back it up?
Sure.
Okay, so go ahead, take a look at this point first.
And on YouTube, it may be a little bit choppy because of technical, but that's just how the world works. So, but if you play pickleball, you know what's happening.
Yep. So you can kind of look and see what's going on. This isn't a super long rally, so.
Right. There is that miracle volley there. And he's like, what?
What? I'm back in the point? Really? Okay, let's go.
Let's go. All right.
All right. So there's where it ends. Okay, cool. So, oh, and I love when they're playing it backwards, right?
If you can play this way, it's amazing.
I'm telling you, this is just so much fun. All right. So in any event here, so we've kind of covered the first four shots. I'm not going to talk a lot about those. Let's get them back up to even here, right? So she hits a great trap to get them even. Now we're going to stop that here. Can you stop that? Can you go back to, so what I want to talk about here is footwork and stepping back, right? So what we're going to see, Eddie has the black shirt on and he's got his back towards us. Notice how the ball comes over and watch how far back he steps. And now he's got a ball that's behind him and he has to flick this with his wrist to get it back over the net, okay? Now he does it with a nice trajectory on the ball, but when you're stepping off the line, you step off the line with a purpose, but keep that ball in front of you. Getting it back there, that's the pop-up. Okay, that's the opportunity that I'm looking for. Because if I see that move, that's where I'm going to keep going and see if I can get him to pop it up.
Yeah, super risky to let that ball get behind him there, right? I mean, to have to reach back and hit a ball there, that's just super difficult, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's, and I will say this. So for most of us, the 4 players on this court are like a little younger than most of us. So they have some of that flexibility as well as some of that quick movement. We will be better served by not letting that ball get past us. Okay.
Agreed. So and then one thing, CJ, that occurs to me is like here, when I'm watching this ball travel, right? I mean, I think if Eddie maybe had been like a step over, if he had started the rally here, or not the rally, but this one shot here, then maybe he could actually just volley that ball, right? So volley dink it instead of letting it bounce and then being caught back here. So
And I think too, and we're going to see this as we go through the points, it's footwork. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know footwork is not the sexy part of pickleball, okay? But footwork is everything in pickleball. And so if he were more balanced in a split step position and had the weight on the balls of his feet, he would be moving more effectively to the side and have been able to take that out of the air as a volley.
Agreed. All right, let's see what else is going on here.
Okay.
I do like the movement here. What do you think of this shot? I like this movement back across by that player, and this player also pulls off the line. But I like the idea of moving from this side. Let's shift them over now, right?
So and I absolutely like how the whole team shifts. So how Eddie and his partner shift, right? And how the 2 people facing us, right? How they're shifting to cover. That's kind of what we were talking about in terms of covering the most area or the largest area of the court.
Right.
Now, what I would say here is she and Eddie did the same thing on the dink. She stepped back. Right. She steps way back off the line. She looks to me kind of tall with a pretty nice reach. I'd be up in that. I'm going to be up in your face, kind of. I don't want to say threatening you, but I'm going to make you afraid of me, right?
And this is a difficult thing, CJ, isn't it? I mean, you know, to let that ball get all the way back here, right? So it's actually on her back knee, right? And she has to lift it from there. Now she does a decent job. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of clearance, but she gets it over, right? So, but this is just so hard to do over and over again. To hit this type of shot over and over and over again is going to be really, really difficult.
Well, and the other thing, Tony, is when she does that, right, is notice the position of her body to the net. She's perpendicular to the net, right? If she had happened to pop that ball up, look at the space between her and her partner.
Right.
It is wide open. Whereas if you know, my philosophy when I'm teaching the non-volley zone is I want my body to stay parallel to the net in all situations, except if I'm going to miss the shot. That is the
Right.
only time that I would turn my body to a point where she has it.
Right.
But she does. She manages to get this shot back over.
Mhm.
I do want to point out here, so the fella in the maroon, he's got some pretty good footwork here for a dink, right? He's
Yep.
letting that ball drop. He's got that paddle out in front of them. He's nice and balanced. So I like his footwork setting up for this dink. You can see his eyes are down at the ball. He's
Mhm.
actually watching the ball. Sometimes we get so caught up in where we're going to send it, we start watching people's feet. But so I really like what he's done with this dink.
Yeah, I like his knee bend and his offhand too, kind of balancing him out. I think it's definitely a good form for a dink there. All right.
And Tony, if I can jump in here just 1 second
Mhm.
with that form for the dink, especially as we get older, we tend to not bend from the hips like he's bending. Okay, we tend to bend from our backs, and we'll be more effective if we bend from the hips like he's bending.
And last longer too, I think, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let's see where he goes. So he goes, and I like his intentionality on the shot, where he basically, I mean, that's a really nice intentional shot. He knows what he wants to do there. He doesn't hit this ball there by accident or just cause. I mean, he really just focuses on hitting it there, which is it's a strategy they have, I think.
Absolutely. Hey, Tony, can you back that up again one last second? Because I want to show what happens. So look at where the people with the back towards us, look at where they are. They do a really nice job of adjusting to court position for this dink. So go ahead and go forward. It's going to go to her backhand. Right. Look at this. I want you to see how Eddie he actually has his foot over the line. So this is what I was talking about earlier. She's protecting that down line. Okay. He's a right-hander. That down line is open for him. If she was any further to her right, that down line is very open. So she's protecting that shot. Eddie is protecting the middle. They're going to give them that shot over to the right. Of Eddie, which is the hardest shot for them to hit in the position that they're in right now.
Right.
So they've done a great job of court coverage here of protecting that.
Agreed. And then they get the far team gets the shot they want, which is they get a high ball that the player in maroon can attack, which he does, right? And then Eddie gets a paddle on it, and I think this was interesting. I think, CJ, where obviously the maroon and black team on the far end have to back up, right? And I think they did a good job of going back together, right, to defend. But I was a little surprised, Eddie and his partner backing up, really, even if they thought the ball was going out, they shouldn't be backing up. But they back up, and then now they're off the line instead of being on the line and able to capitalize on the advantage that they got off Eddie's volley, right?
Absolutely. So here's the thing: is if you have hit a lob over your opponent's heads, no matter what, even if that lob ends up going out, get to the line. Okay. That if you're getting your opponents to back away from the line, you need to be at the non-volley zone. Don't sit there and take a look at it. And I agree with you. I think they probably thought the point was over and they're just stopping play. How many times have you stopped play thinking the point was over and the ball fell in, and now you're not in the right place on the court? So keep playing until you actually hear an out call.
All right, let's take a look here. So that now, she's not able to take the ball here, right? Which is where she would have hit it at the NVZ. Instead, she has to hit it from here. And then she pushes it back. And I found this interesting. She pushes it back to this player's forehand, which I think, to me, this is when I see this sort of shot, it tells me, unless, I haven't spoken to her, so maybe she had a plan with that ball. But that to me would not be where I would want to hit the ball. And I'm not saying I necessarily hit it to the female player, but I would certainly hit it maybe in the middle, right? Because in the middle, I get maroon's backhand, I get Gallon Black's forehand, or I go cross court to Gallon Black's backhand. I don't want to go to maroon's forehand, I don't think, right?
Well, here's the thing. You said you wouldn't necessarily hit it to the girl. I would.
Right. Well, yeah.
Okay. I would hit it to the girl. So I would challenge the middle. This is the time I would challenge the middle of the court. Cause frankly, I'd have got bored and I thought, okay, maroon guy is getting it back to me.
Right.
Okay. How do I create he's not making mistakes.
Right.
But what I want everybody to see, and what you can see by her being so far back, she's allowing that ball to drop. The ball now, instead of being high, like if my hand here is the net, and that ball, instead of being up here where she could hit a downward angle, that ball has now dropped to here. So it's just basically above the net. So she's got to hit that ball very flat, and there's nothing on it. I sure wouldn't give that kind of ball to the male player in a mixed doubles match.
And the other thing is
I'm going to give that to the female player.
She's making her margin smaller, right?
Absolutely.
By being in the wrong place. And this is where I think what you're talking about, like movement, so important, because just because of her court position, not because of the type of player she is, nothing. It's just where she is standing by definition makes her margins smaller. If she was standing at the net, she'd be able to hit a higher ball and have a lot more safety when she hit it over, a lot more space to hit it over the net cleanly without having to worry about hitting it all the way from back here.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
now
so
they do a nice job of getting back up to the net, right? I mean, both teams have covered the court pretty well. The maroon and black went back together. And now as he hits the next shot, they're going to start coming back up together. So I think both teams are covering the court pretty nicely throughout this point.
The only thing I would change some, and it ends up being, maybe I have the benefit of hindsight, right? Because I've seen the rallies, so I know how it ends. But, like in this situation here, I would like to see the player with her back to us one step to her right, and Eddie one step to his right. Because right now her backhand is basically almost off the court, meaning she's protecting out territory. And so anytime, and I've seen this it happens in mixed doubles more than I think more than in men's or women's doubles, but having a side of your wing that's off the court, right, doesn't do you any good. So you're better off, bringing her a little bit to the right so that Eddie can then, still help in the middle, but also make sure that right side of his doesn't get exposed, which is ultimately, as we already know, how this rally ends. So.
A really good thing to take your cue from the person on the other side of the net, right? I mean, where are they in relationship to their part of the court, and then cover a little bit to the side of them. Does that make sense?
That's a good idea.
Sometimes it's easier to show than it is to talk about, but okay.
He does a good job here with kind of a rolly 30 there, right? And we've talked about this before, CJ, but I like to say, like, this third, right, is not what you would consider a textbook third, because it doesn't drop in the first part of the MVZ and things like that. But it's a good enough shot that it allows, it's underneath the net, right, when Eddie hits it. So it allows the players on the far side to come in some and to basically take some real estate up, which is what they want to do, right?
Absolutely. He has to hit up on the ball. So even though it's not perfect, it's kind of like in that yellow light territory, they get to at least come in a little bit. They're no longer on the baseline, because they have to get to neutral, right? That's what they're trying to do. Right.
And then you have, I think, so here he moves in a little bit. Now he gets this easier. Now from here, it's a much easier dink. And it's interesting, right, that the ball keeps on going to Maroon's forehand over and over and over again, which I would think would not be optimally where you want the ball to go. So
nope.
And then we have that shot, and that. So then here, I think, is where basically the I don't know her name, but the Eddie's partner does shift over here. See how she's farther over to the right now, right?
Yep.
But Eddie maintains his position there.
He doesn't move.
Right.
Yep.
And that allows, now it's too late.
Yep.
Right? And
ball's behind him, and he doesn't get away with that little wrist move that he does any longer.
All right. Yeah. Well, cool. Anything else, CJ, on this point? If not, I got another rally. I got another rally I think is pretty interesting. Nationals rally to watch. Is that all right?
You go for it.
Let's do it. All right. So I'm going to walk you guys through this. I'll walk you through it as we go. These are two very good teams. If you want to watch a good match, send Lori an email and I'll get you a link to this match. This is a Nationals match. I believe it's 4-5. Very smart players on both sides. You have just really good play. So you got a nice deep serve here, kind of nice, a little bit short on the return, but hard. And then you have, now this is where the tension starts, right? The dance between the serve and the return. They're trying to, the white and red team on this side are trying to solve the initial part of the game, which is getting up to the NVZ. Now it's when they finally get the shot. The lady in white gets the shot that she wants. And now they start coming up, right? But they're super calm. Look at that movement together, right? Split step. Nice, right? Gets down low. Boom. Beautiful shot there. Gets up. Right now they're up. Now we're at a neutral rally. This is what we're talking about. This is, if you get to this stage of the rally, you're getting into the meat of the matter. So here you're going to see a dink that goes a little bit high, and then white decides, okay, let me go. And she does, and we're going to look at some more of these, but she does a nice body shot here, right? Attacking her opponent. And then, and this rally, we're focusing on movement, but that's a good shot to have, which we'll look at in a second. The shot comes off kind of weird, but, you know, super effective. Look at the movement here, right? So I have red going to get it. Look at white move. This is what we talked about with that elastic tether. White's moving with red, not exactly the same, but moving to the middle, right? Because red's off the court. So white's really the only player left. White basically has to play singles right now. Now the red here takes hits a jam shot. Now this is what we talked about earlier too. She's in trouble. Red's clearly in trouble here, right? The way she's moving. So when she gets to this ball, what she decides to do, and I can tell you personally, I've done this successfully many times in tournament play and rec play too. But basically, she just throws this ball at her opponent into the body, right, and jams her opponent, and then that allows white to basically get set up. Red's going to come back on the court. This is the shot of the rally right here. This shot right here. It's such a beautiful shot by the player in white, recognizing that the player over here has not recovered from the last shot. This player's over here, so all of this court's open over here. This player recognizes the open space and then hits this beautiful little dink over here, stressing the other team. Now, if you remember, what did white do when red got stressed? White came to the middle. Okay. Her opponent does not go to the middle. Her opponent basically stays and keeps her position. That is what opens up that gap that CJ talked about earlier. So a gap gets open between the two players, right? She moves a little bit there, but not enough, and it's too late. Now the player in white, again, savvy player, she's not going to hit it hard. She's just going to drop it in there. And that's what ends the rally. So there, what you're seeing is you're seeing movement, how moving a player around and, by the white player. And a lot of times the pickleball players, I want to note one thing. We look at this shot and we say, nice shot. And there's nothing wrong with that shot. That's a fine shot. Yep. But the nice shot is this one. That's the masterful shot right there, right? This is just finishing. What I tell partners of mine if my partner hits a shot like the one before that I said was a masterful shot and I put it away, I always say I had the don't mess it up shot. Basically, it's a shot that, I mean, I'm going to put it away, but I better not mess it up. My partner did all the work, right? All the heavy lifting by hitting the really nice shot that then set up my put away. But it wasn't my put away that was the key to the rally. The key to the rally was the shot that sets up the put away. Anything on this rally, CJ, that jumped out to you?
Yeah, let's talk about that shot where she jammed her up, where the gal in the red jammed up the gal across the net. Let's go back there. Right, so this shot here. Right here. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So couple of things that you can do. So Tony talked about the jam shot, right? I tend to favor, I like to dump a dink. So for me, I like to take from here and I like to dump a dink back to the back foot of the player in the white. Okay.
So you would go here.
I would go here. Right. I would go there try and do that with a fairly soft shot. Now we all know that when you're hitting a shot on the run, it's more challenging to do, right? When I'm hitting a shot on the run, and I practice these a lot, when I'm hitting that shot on the run, one of the technical things that I think about is what goes in my mind is soft, soft, soft. I soften my grip pressure, right? And I just try and make everything in the motion soft because my momentum of my legs and my lower body is transferring to the ball and the paddle. Okay, so I like to dump that dink. Now, I think one of the things that you can also do, and Tony and I talked about this a little earlier when we were just kind of going through some of these rallies, is he talked about taking that dink across the middle of the net. So Tony, why don't you talk about, instead of just the dump dink, which again takes a little practice,
sure,
what about taking a dink across the middle of the net if you're not comfortable with that jam shot?
And let me try something here. What CJ is talking about is she's talking about basically dumping the ball, obviously not in the out of bounds, but like in this zone here. And that's a fine shot. The risk that I see with that shot is if you float it a little bit, what ends up happening is this area here. Let me see if I can do this right. This area kind of in here is open because the player in red is off the court. So it allows this player to basically just poke the ball, which if you recall is what the player in white does later on in the rally, is basically she goes at the opening that gets established there when the ball comes down the line to her. What I tend to like, the more that I think about the game and the more that I study things, is I like the ball here. Some people like to hit the ball all the way across here. The risk with the ball coming all the way across here, based on my sort of analysis and thinking of angles and things like that, is that this player, the ball has to cross the plane of this player in the green. Excuse me. So what can happen is, if that ball gets floated, this player is moved. This player has moved over here, right? That opens up an attack down this zone here. So that's what concerns me about that. I think the shot in this zone here, the one that I left standing, has the benefit of usually if you're playing a right hander, it goes to this player's backhand. It can be attacked by this player, perhaps the player that's directly across from you, but usually they're leaning towards you a little bit, So I like to dump off into this spot here. So, or a lob. I like a lob there too. I know that I'm a big fan of the defensive lob there. I know a lot of players don't like it, but I love the little flick lob there.
I got to tell you, so the lob to me as well, especially playing women, right? Tony's 6 feet tall. I'm only 5 feet 8. So if Tony was standing where the gal in the green shirt is standing, I don't know that I'm going to throw up a lob, right? because if I miss it, it's going right into his overhand and he's going to cremate my partner. But I've already seen the gals in the greens overhead, and when she was moving backward, it wasn't the best overhead. So, and the gal, it looks to me like the gal on the other side of the court is a little shorter. So I might try that lob up and over the two of them. And I'm trying to hit it to the back corner of the even box. That would be from where the girl in the red is all the way back over to that even box. It gives me the most amount of. Are you going here, Caesar? Yeah, but right towards the baseline.
Gotcha.
If you took that towards the baseline, that's where I would be going. It's kind of like almost in between the two of them from where the gal in the red is.
I'm going to do mine in yellow. I would do mine here. Okay. More towards the baseline there. And the reason I would is, let me do it a little better. The reason I would is because the key is I have to get over this player's forehand, right? But as long as I get it, if I'm elevating it up into this area here, right? It's gonna be really hard for this player to hit an overhead. And then once it's dropping here, I don't mind this player going back and hitting it with the backhand. I'm okay with that. And so I do agree. You obviously have more, you have more space if you go towards the blue dot than the yellow dot. But usually where I'm aiming for is the yellow dot is my go-to spot from here to get it. I'm trying to get it either behind them or on the player across diagonally backhand normally. So.
Yep. Exactly, because you're either on somebody's backhand or hopefully you've gotten it past the player at the net and you're on somebody's backhand, right? So she has to come up with a high backhand volley, not an easy shot.
And I think the key here, though, CJ, is whichever one of these strategies that is best for you, because some players have, like Mills Miller is the best from what he's probably one of the best straight on dinkers in the game. So he can dink. That dump dink for him is like no big deal, right? For other players, maybe they're more comfortable with a cross-court dink or a middle dink. The key is to have some technique that you're comfortable with, that you feel that you can execute with reasonable, reasonable confidence, and that you're ready for it before the shot gets hit. Because once the shot gets the lady in the red, she has her technique down, right? She's not hitting this. We talked before about like accidental shots. This is not an accidental shot, folks. She did not accidentally flick that ball into the other person's chest by accident. So there was an intentional thing that she was trying to accomplish, and obviously it worked out for her. So,
yep.
Anything else, CJ, on this rally? If not, we're going to jump over to the next topic.
Let's go.
Let's keep going. All right. So what we're going to do, CJ, is I'm just going to jump in the interest of time. I'm going to jump into the next set of rallies. What we're going to look at is the body flick shot here. This is a really interesting strategy. So movement is fundamental, right? Movement is you got to have good movement in everything you do when you play pickleball. You know, when you're moving back, front, side to side, movement is super critical. I always tell people, I would rather play with somebody who's in the right spot and has not the best shot than someone who has the best shot and is in the wrong spot. Because if you're in the wrong spot, I don't care how good your shots are, you can't execute them because you're not you're not in the right place. So being in the right place is fundamental. And the other way, the kind of basic way I think about it is, I'm playing on a pickleball court, right? So like my body connects to the court with my feet, right? So if my feet are not in the right place, then what am I doing, right? That's the first building block of any successful player, is my foot on the court being in the right spot where it needs to be. So that's a really important thing that pervades all aspects of pickleball. Obviously at the MVG line is critical. The body flick shot is a very specific technique that we're going to talk to you guys about to give you something very specific that you can try and work on. Before we get into it, I want to be clear about a couple things. One, this technique, you can use it anytime you want. It's not illegal. It's fine to use. But if you're going to use it in rec play, use it with an understanding of who you're playing with. All right. You know, this is the kind of shot that can create discomfort, you know, more than just in the rally, because it's the kind of shot where you're basically throwing the ball into somebody's body intentionally. And especially if you don't have good control of the shot and you end up, you know, hitting people in the face area and stuff like that, whether it's a legal shot or a fault, it doesn't matter. You're just going to create, you know, a bad kind of scenario. So be judicious how you use it in tournament play and in competitive. You know, when you're in competitive rec play matches that are really competitive, knock yourself out with a shot. But CJ, let's look at and I want to cover movement here too, because these are four of the best senior players in the world. On the far court, we have Scott Moore in white, Glenn Peterson in black. On this court, we have Steve Dawson in red and Brian Staub in white. So they're going to show us, and I'll rush through the first part here because I want to see, we want to see them here. So here, actually, let's start here. And CJ, I'm going to jump into this one if it's okay with you. So we're going to have Steve basically starts attacking Glenn from a kind of a very aggressive stance, I would say, you know, for him to do. I mean, this is he's pushing some margins here that are pretty narrow to go after a really good player like this. But you can see he's going to do it over again. So these are the body flick shots here, where he's going into Glenn's body. CJ, what do you see here in terms of the way that Steve's target here? What are you seeing as Steve's target on these two strokes?
So the weakest part on any player is between the shoulder and the hip of their paddle hand. So Glenn being a right-hander, shoulder to the hip of the paddle hand, which means that he's going to have to defend that. He's going to have to do what he just did. He chicken winged it, right? You can see how his elbow is way up there and his paddle head is way below his wrist. Now, Glenn has such phenomenal touch. He manages to get this shot comes back over the net, right? For many players, this shot goes in the net.
CJ, I stopped it here because I just noticed, look at Glenn's heels. He's had to lift himself up because of how uncomfortable that position is. He can't get his arm up any higher, so he has to actually get up on his tippy toes to be able to hit that ball. So that's a super effective shot. But you're right, he's able to. And now Steve decides, okay, let's change tactic, right? So he's gonna go after Scott here. Scott's going in the middle, which is good. Nice movement here by everybody. You know, you have Steve letting it. Steve is a proponent of this type of dinking. I'm not necessarily against it. I think it's the type of dinking, though, that you have to really practice it and you have to be comfortable with it, because he basically takes the balls off the bounce all the time and redirects them. And so, you know, most players will do more like he does it here, but look at Scott. Scott lets it bounce apex and then hits it. So that's another technique. So you can use both techniques, but just if you're going to use the Dawson technique, just make sure you practice it a lot, because that ball has a lot of energy coming off the. How do you do it, CJ? Do you let it apex normally, or do you try and take him off the bounce normally? Because Steve will step in and take him off the bounce. He wants it off the bounce.
I tend to be a little bit more traditional. I'm not quite as aggressive as Steve is, because frankly, I don't practice it enough, right? I mean, I really think that's a skill that you have to practice a lot to be certainly as consistent as he is with it.
Right. And Steve, Steve, you know, and his theory is, just so you understand the theory, is not you, everybody watching, is basically he's trying to take time away from you. Yep. So time is really important. We're not talking about today, and today's it's not a focus of today, But if you can remove time from your opponent, that's awesome. So that's really Steve's mentality. But let's go back to the flick shot here where I have, so Steve gets another ball. What do you think he's going to do here, CJ? I'm thinking he's going to flick it.
I mean, you can tell from the paddle, right?
Right.
I mean, look at where the paddle is, right?
Right.
And you'll also know when he flicks it, right? If you go forward just a little bit, because he does this consistently. It's a little bit of a roll shot, right?
Yep.
He's got the paddle here, and the flick is coming from the wrist in that position. So the paddle's below and coming back up, and he's going to go back at Glenn's hip again.
And look at, now this time Glenn's up on his tippy toes again, but the ball's a little bit higher. And if I recall correctly, Glenn gets in trouble on this one. And that's what Steve's looking for. Right. Steve's hoping that he might miss one of those, but Steve's really counting on this type of, this type of response from Glenn. He's looking for Glenn to pop it up. And so that then he can just go right back at his feet, get it down low to where Glenn can't handle it. So that's a really effective shot. So,
and what I want to share here is, and hopefully I said this when we were on YouTube, or hopefully I said this and the people who are on YouTube heard this as well, is being at that non-volley zone line is you can be aggressive at the non-volley zone line. Now here, I think you would look, Steve in this point has been very aggressive at the non-volley zone line, right? Even though all four players were at the non-volley zone line, he really had Glenn and Scott on the defense in this entire point.
Right. And what I would suggest is, I would, like, if you watch this rally, I mean, I think you would rather be, in the whole rally, I'd rather be Steve and Brian rather than be Scott and Glenn in this particular rally, because of how, the way that that Steve basically, every time he got a chance, he's basically just pushing the action. And the way I look at it is basically like what Steve does is he basically throws it at Glenn and then says, Glenn, you figure it out, man. If you can solve it, you figure it out, but I'm going to put the onus on you. I want to put the pressure on you to do something. And if you mess up, then I'm going to do exactly this and jam it at you. So,
Tony, can we talk just a little bit about movement?
Absolutely. Let me back it up. Hope you guys aren't getting seasick out there watching all these back and forth, but these rallies, really getting into them is really how you learn, how you get better. Watching this level player and really focusing not to say that we shouldn't all aspire to have like Steve's beautiful, wrist flick. I mean, that's a beautiful shot. Requires a lot of forearm strength to be able to execute that shot the way he does it, way out there like that. It's fine. I mean, it's great. But really what I like to focus on when I'm watching this level of player is exactly what we're going to do. How are they moving? How are they thinking about the game? What are they trying to do? Maybe I don't have quite that shot like Steve does, but maybe one day I will, but I can certainly develop some of their movement. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let me get him up here. And you can see, actually look at Scott for real quick here, even though they're not at the line yet. If you look at Scott here, you have Scott sees that Glenn's kind of in trouble, right? So he says, "Whoop, let me stop." Right? Why does he stop? Because Glenn's under duress, and then he still stays there. And Scott likes to be at the line. You know that, CJ. I know that he wants to be at that line badly, but he still stays back until he sees Glenn be able to reset, and then now Scott's going to close, right?
Yep.
So
exactly.
Why don't you start us here, CJ, and I'll let it run a little bit, and let me know when you want to stop here. We'll look at their movement here.
As they're starting to move, what I want you to watch is watch where they are on their feet. And you can clearly see that they're balanced and on the balls of their feet, and they're moving laterally. They're keeping their bodies parallel to the net for the most part, right? He turns just a little bit to get this dink. Scott turns. I might have taken that out of the air if I was Scott, but hey, it's Scott, right? He's got a long reach. I got to tell you, if you've ever been on the other side of the net from him, you swear he's 10 feet tall because he has a long reach. But he decided to let it bounce. But as they're moving, not only are they moving to cover the court, they're moving in well-balanced positions side to side. They're very balanced. Think back at the last two rallies. Not quite as balanced, right? You saw a lot of people back on their heels and, out of balance. So great footwork here. I also want you to notice this is right here. There's a fairly big gap between Brian and Steve, right? Watch how quickly it gets closed. Look at this.
Right. Yeah, Steve basically makes a move to his right, realizing there's a gap there, and then Brian comes back to the middle. But look also at Glenn. I like Glenn's position here. So he sees Scott has to step. And as soon as Scott steps, almost in unison, right? Glenn comes across to basically protect that middle because Scott's turned and he's over here. So Glenn knows, okay, I got to cover the middle here.
And one other thing here to notice, both the players who are not on the ball, go back and just stop right here. Mm-hmm. The players who are not on the ball, which are Steve and Glenn, do you see how they're angled towards the ball? Their hips are not completely parallel to the non-volley zone line, right? They're angled a little bit so that they have that ability to cover more of the court.
And you definitely want to have your upper body turned towards the action. So if the ball is over on the right is action, then you want to have your body turned. What players do sometimes is they stand basically parallel to the MVZ line, even though the ball's over there or over there, and they don't turn their hips and their torso basically, because obviously, you know, with my shoulders and my torso, which are the hips move them, right? But basically that's where my paddle is going, right? And that's where the action is. So I want to make sure I'm following wherever the ball is, which is obviously these players do. There's a question on the YouTubes, and CJ, it was what you and I talked about earlier. The question is this: in or out? What? Good question. I don't know the answer. This is like one of those in baseball. It's like a 3-2 pitch. You know, he could have if he had let it go, I wouldn't have criticized him. And that's one of the things. You know, we're not going to get into out balls today, but that's one of the things that if you let an out ball go, don't worry about where it lands. As long as you made the decision at the time, that's all you can do. So if that ball landed in, I would have been like, hey man, it landed in. You know, good idea, good thinking. If it landed out, then obviously awesome, right? But so that was a question that you and I had talked about earlier. Yep. All right, so let's move on to.
We had one other question on YouTube.
We do. What is it?
It says, does the balance come from playing together often?
Go ahead.
So I think, first of all, number one, there's two kinds of balance. You have to have your own individual balance as you move back and forward, knowing where your partner is moving to and whose ball is what. It comes, I will say this, these guys do tend to play together fairly regularly, but it also comes from understanding what portion of the court you're trying to cover. So even if you don't play with someone a lot, if you know that when they're moving over to cover the line, that you need to get over and cover that center and turn square to the ball, and something that comes to the middle is your shot, that's balance as well. And you don't have to play together to be able to do that.
Yeah, I would suggest, I agree with that, CJ. I think the way I look at it is, you know, there's certain fundamentals on how you move. For instance, what CJ said, like turning towards the ball, you turn to the ball, you know, regardless of, you know, whether you're playing with a 5-0 or a 2-0, it doesn't matter. You turn to the ball. That's a thing. How you move together. Yes, that gets improved by, for instance, like Jill, my wife, and I have played a lot of mixed doubles. So I can tell when she's getting ready to load up on a third shot drive. And so as soon as I see her get load up on a third shot drive, actually on this side, it could be two-handed backhand. She's getting her to rip it. Then what I'll do is, actually that's her forehand. So on this side. All right, I got it. So what I'll do is I'll basically charge the NVZ because I'm looking for a pop-up that I can then finish, right? So that's because I play with her. So I know, you know, what to expect. The other thing, covering the middle, those kind of things will definitely improve the more you play with somebody. And that's, you know, one of the beauties of pickleball is this, you know, the doubles, because it's a team game. You know, it's two players, but it's one. Coach Pete, who I interviewed for the podcast, you know, talked about it being like an amoeba, you know, which it makes a lot of sense. It's like an amoeba out there moving around, you know, trying to basically cover the court as much as possible, trying to do the best you can as a team. So,
yep.
I hope that answered the question. Any more questions out there? If not, I'm going to move into this beautiful point here. Let's see here. All right. So here we have Ted Meyer on the other side, one of the best super seniors. Gary Miller on this side. We have Jim and Steve. So let's get it going on. This is actually a pretty interesting point. So, or rally. From tennis, I call them points. I got to use to calling them rallies. I really like this volley dink. And it seems like just a small detail, right? But I really like the fact that he does not let this, you know, he doesn't let Gary push him around. He says, nah, I'm going to lateral and I'm just going to pick this up. These are the little things that really avoid you getting in trouble. And then he just puts it nicely there. And we're going to have they're going to mess around a little bit here. And then we have kind of a maybe not hard enough, but kind of a premature attack, maybe a little bit by Steve. And then Ted's able to attack it. And then Jim does a good job of defending there. And then it starts smashing balls at each other, right? And then here what happens is there's a flick shot into Steve and a flick shot into Jim. So, or an attack to Jim. So basically it was like flick shot, flick shot, flick shot, flick shot. But you can see how, it does put a lot of pressure on even these players who are good players. You start having these like, again, this flick shot probably was a little bit premature and maybe not executed hard enough. He didn't finish it. Then you have Ted attacking. Gary gets it. And then you have these basically everybody's hitting balls into everybody's chest, It's like, I think Jim missed that one a little bit.
But so here's two things that I would add to that is I agree with you. I think that was probably a little premature, that it was a little bit below the net. But if you go back, can you go back just one shot, a little bit more? Right here, the court's open. Right? He's going to go ahead. He's going to get pulled off the court. And instead he flicks it right back at the opponent. This is the time that I would, you don't have to hit it hard, right? Right now they're in a boom, 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 boom. This is the example of, I don't have to hit it hard. That court is wide open. He's not over far enough to defend his partner who's been pulled off the court, in my opinion. And he could have gone down into just straight away. And this is a winner.
Gotcha. Yep. I agree with that. But I bet you a lot of players recognize this kind of point. Just bang, 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 bang. It's like,
yeah.
And then Gary, and I thought Gary did something interesting. You see what he did here? He turned his paddle around. Like he was like, I'm not hitting a backhand here. I'm going, and I'll do this. I'll turn my paddle around sometimes and just smash it with my forehand. He decides to go at Jim's same thing. Everybody's going at
Jim's body, right? Yeah. Everybody's going at the body, trying to jam him up. Mm-hmm.
CJ, what do you think? Let's do a little bit on attack the middle here, and I'm going to start spooling this. One thing, guys, if you're interested in if you like this kind of analysis, email Lori. We're putting together some classes on this kind of stuff. This is what we do. Usually we don't have technical difficulties. We're not on YouTube. We just use Zoom, so we're pretty good at it. This is actually a really good match. We got Lee Waters and Catherine Parenta on the other side, and we have the Kawamoto. I think they're twins on this side. And I really like the movement. Obviously, these players are younger than me for sure. But the way they move back and forth. Look at the Kawamoto sisters, right? Look at them. The way they move, they flow. It almost looks like a ballet, right? It's like back and forth, just beautiful. And then, you have, and let's look at this real quick. So you have, Catherine, I'm 95% it was Catherine. Catherine went cross court, right? Yep. And then she gets this one here and she says, you know what? Let's switch it up. Let's go over here. And the Kawamoto twins, it looks like they're lefty and righty. So let's go here to the backhand. And then she goes, this is Lee Waters over here. She goes to Lee. Lee rolls it back at her again. That's a two-handed, right? To help with defense. She probably could have volleyed that one. Catherine's going to start being a little aggressive here, right?
Yeah.
She sees the ball there. And also the other thing she sees Kawamoto off the line. That's something that's really important when you're battling at the NVZ. You don't want to be, and I'm not criticizing the Kawamoto sister for coming off the line to get that ball. That's life. She had to do it, right? But you want to try and avoid playing in this position if you can. And if you're Catherine on the other side, you want to be able to recognize that you see some open court. And when you see open court there, you want to, and she's not trying to overpower her here, right? She's not trying to hit like a smashing winner. She's just saying, you know what? I'm going to hit it at your shoelaces. So if I can get it at your shoelaces, I'm going to go to your shoelaces every single time, right? So here you have that battle, and then good reset by the Kawamoto sister here. I call it lefty Kawamoto. And now Catherine switches it up again, right? Now she goes test the right Kawamoto. Look at them. Who can get low? I can't get low like that, CJ.
And are you going to get up if you get that low?
No, well, yeah, I get down like that, and then I'll have to roll on my back and then push myself off the court. Jeez. All right. Anyway, so if you guys can get down like this, do it, because this is awesome. But I can't. So,
I can't either. I can't either.
And the control. Let's look real quick at her technique. So her technique, even though I know she's down, right? But look at her technique. How compact it is. Very simple little lift, right? Lift the ball over, no big deal, right?
Without the wrist.
Right.
Without the wrist. That was still an arm movement.
That's right. Catherine's coming in. I got a question earlier. I want to answer real quick. Somebody asked me about using elbow and wrist when you hit. You cannot, we don't have like rods in our wrists and our elbows that keep them like perfectly out like this when we're hitting, right? What we're talking about when you hear CJ or myself or other instructors talk about using your shoulder and your big muscles, what we're talking about is this is the primary driver. my elbow and my wrist is going to move some as I hit because we're human beings and these things move, right? So you're going to get some movement. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see this or this being the primary driver on most shots. So we don't want to see like a dink that's like, like this. We want to see a dink that's like this. And if your wrist moves a little bit, that's probably getting me dizzy, then that's okay. But, so when we talk about no wrist, no elbow, we don't mean like lock it down and tight, right? We just mean, right, CJ? I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about stability, right? So that this isn't happening with the paddle, because that's changing your paddle face.
Right. And this shoulder, you guys will be able to hit with your shoulder unless you have a shoulder problem, in which case I'm sorry. But if you can hit with your shoulder forever, you start hitting with your wrist, you're going to play for 2 years and then you're going to be out. So,
yep.
All right, let's see what's going on here. So we got Catherine attacking again. Really, these are beautiful dinks by her, just deep and really, really stressful dinks, right? And now look at that. What do we do here? We pull them one way, right? And then we go in and we just go, okay, we're going to go the other way now, right?
Now stop this right here, Tony, if you would. What Catherine recognized right there is if you look at Catherine and Lee's foot position to the non-volley zone, right? They are both on top the non-volley zone.
Mm-hmm.
As Catherine goes to hit this shot, see how far back the left-handed Kawamoto girl is off the non-volley zone, right? Catherine recognizes that. This is what I talked about earlier, dinking with a purpose. Catherine recognizes that, and she's not trying to attack at the body or hit that flick, but watch where this dink goes. Go ahead and forward it.
And then she's able to push it behind the line, right? Yep.
Gonna push it behind her, right? She said, "Can I get you to back up even further?" More,
right?
And that's now the thing, look guys, at how far that paddle is behind her.
Right, and that's the thing. That's exactly right, CJ. That's Catherine recognizing space, right? She sees space, she attacks space, and what happens is, and even when next time you guys are out on the court, dink from here, stand here and dink a whole game, or dink from the NVZ. Much easier to dink from the NVZ than from, whatever this is, 3-4 foot off the NVZ, maybe 5 where the ball is. But, that distance from the NVZ, much harder. That NVZ gets really small in the net. Everything gets really, really small. So the much harder for you, much likelier pop-up or error. Okay.
Yep.
So here, what does Lee see here? Right. So now I think at this stage, normally people don't go to Lee's forehand because Lee's forehand is deadly, as we'll see. But I think there was a little bit of an opening over here, not a little, but there's a little space over here that they could have gone to here. But that's the risk, right? We talked about earlier, even on the pull off. If you miss your spot a little bit, you're going to basically put it where this player can now do something with it. Excuse me. And what Lee sees here is, and I'm going to jump on what you said, CJ, about left-handed Kawamoto's off the line, right-handed Kawamoto is not, right? Now, to me, I don't want them off the line, but if left-handed Kawamoto's off the line, I want right-handed Kawamoto off the line because I want them to be able to form a wall to defend. I don't want to see one player up and one player back because then that allows Lee to just roll it into the middle, no problemo. That's a beautiful shot by Lee and a beautiful recognition of a movement error by the Kawamoto sisters and then attacking that middle.
Yep. And she didn't have to, again, here's the purpose. It wasn't necessarily the hardest, certainly for Lee, it wasn't the hardest hit forehand coming off of Lee's forehand, right? This is, boom, I see a space. It's traveling at a downward angle. You're making, look at how off balance she is. We've made her move all the way from the right, the right sideline towards the center side, towards the center line and really reach. Because she's off of balance, she misses. It's an error. And she's on 1 foot when she hits this ball. The other thing I would suggest is, again, and remember what I said at the beginning of this exercise, I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. But what happens here is, if you look at this point right now, this rally right now, the Kawamoto sister on the right, the left-handed Kawamoto sister she's alone. She's playing alone against 2 players right now. The Kawamoto sister on the left, the right-hand Kawamoto sister, is not in the rally, right? So when this ball gets hit, the Kawamoto sister on the left can't help. She's of no help right now. It goes, and so if you look at the whole movement of this, let me step it back a second. From here till the end of the rally, watch the Kawamoto sister on the right. She's basically playing alone, right? She has to cover all that court by herself. You don't want to do that.
You want to make sure that if you're the Kawamoto sister that's on the left, the right-hand Kawamoto sister, that you're involved in that rally and trying to help your partner who's clearly in a bad spot, right? Try and help that player out.
I think that was kind of her mistake when her sister went to the right-hand side, when Catherine took that forehand dink that we were looking at and put it over towards her backhand. She didn't move much more towards the middle. She may have moved a little towards the middle, but it wasn't enough. If you remember back into the Glenn Peterson video, he was actually standing on the center line, right? You know, when Scott got pulled out way wide on that backhand from Brian, he moved and he stood on the center line the minute that Scott got pulled off the court.
Correct. And there's a question that is being asked, which is, do I always want to stay up or back with my partner? And the answer is yes. Meaning I don't want to see one player up and one player back. We don't have time to get into the details of this right now, but we call it the islands of despair when we do our classes. And basically that's the worst of all worlds, because it allows one player to get attacked and one player to be kept back. If your partner gets in trouble and it has to go back for a lob or for whatever reason, you go back with your partner and assist. And sometimes what you'll see, I'll actually go behind my partner, not behind them literally, but like farther back than my partner to see if I can provide some assistance. And in fact, if you watch like Ben Johns and Kyle Yates, when they play sometimes, you'll see Kyle fade behind Ben to basically provide support. So you want to be involved. You know, you don't want to just be like, okay, my partner's over there, ball getting over there. I guess I'll just stay here. No. There's more to the going on in the rally than just your partner, you know, is in trouble and you're just standing there, nothing happened, right? You get back in there, get back in the game and try and help your partner out of that situation. And one more thing quickly, that's not helping your partner out. It is, but that's helping yourself out. Because if your partner gets stuck in a bad spot like there, the right-handed Kawamoto lost the same rally that the left-handed Kawamoto lost, right? It wasn't like, well, my sister lost a rally. No. They both lost a rally. So I view it being selfish. Just do it for yourself. Do it because you don't want to lose the rally. Go help your partner out and maybe you'll have a lesser chance. One other thing I want to note real quick, CJ, before we get into this, which I think will be the last rally we'll have time for, is it's another Kawamoto rally. It's a really good rally. But what happened, what I want you guys to notice here, guys and gals, is the Kawamoto sisters, I don't know how old they are, but they're clearly young, right? But look at their composure, right? They just lost. They're 9-7, and this is a big tournament. They're playing really good players. But she comes over here, and she's like, you know, am I the right server? What's the score, right? Very calm. So, you know, just take your time when you're out there. You know, you play a big point. Look, she's bouncing the ball, super calm, taking her time before, no rushing. Everybody chill. Here we go. Talk to me, CJ.
Okay, so one last thing I would say about that, I wanted to add something. I always try, and I don't care if this is rec play or tournament play, I always try and make eye contact with my partner and just say, hey, you know, just an eye contact, just an acknowledgement, because I don't want my partner ever feeling bad, like they screwed up. Right. Right? I want to be their biggest booster and give them confidence. And I think that was a good thing they did. They looked at each other, they reset the point. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Agreed 100%. And listen, there's actually something that I do that I'll share with everybody. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's not a huge reveal, but you know, like I have a tendency when I'm playing doubles, if I miss a ball, I'll say sorry to my partner. It just comes out like I don't even think about it, you know? And I'll go back to Coach Pete. You guys listen to our podcast. I think it's really good podcast, Pickleball Therapy with Coach Peter Scales. Anyway, he basically said, don't say sorry. And it's not, don't say sorry because you're not sorry. That's not the right way to look at it. It's your partner knows you're sorry. Obviously you don't want to miss that ball. And it's not you. And this is something that it's not you and another player, right? So it's not CJ and I playing on a court as two people. It's CJ and I playing as a team. So my miss is her miss, basically. Same thing. My winner is her winner, right? So, So, you know, this sorry thing, I'm trying to break it up. Actually, the other day, I told my friend, I'm like, sorry for saying sorry, you know, after I said sorry. So, but you know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. You know, saying sorry and don't, you know, you shouldn't feel bad or feel particularly fantastic. You know, you work together. If it's good, it's because you both played well. If it's bad, it's because you both, you know, did something wrong. Like there, the right-handed Kawamoto, come on back. All right, let's check out this rally here. So we have a little bit of a drive here.
Which I think is out.
Probably. But the curious thing is this drive here, right? And people ask me about these kind of drives. This drive here, just so you know, the left-handed Kawamoto has no fantasy that this drive is going to win the rally. She just, for whatever reason, didn't like the return and didn't want to try a third shot here or a long dink here. So she just, this is a point extender, a rally extender is all this is. And then you have the right-handed Kawamoto trying to stay alive here. There was a lot of wind that day. If you guys ever see videos of this, it was crazy wind. That I wasn't crazy about that shot. But see the left-handed Kawamoto, right? Doesn't like it. Look what she does. She comes back, reset, right? Come back, get in position, and then move forward again. Don't just stay up because, you know, if you're part of the trouble. So now they're back, and now they're basically like nothing's happened. It's basically like I'm hitting my third shot right now. The last shots nothing happened. Now I hit my nice third shot. Now I'm in, right? Which is what I want. This shot here, guys, is probably, I think this is probably the most difficult shot in pickleball, in my opinion.
Falling backwards. Yeah.
Falling, and the backhand middle dink.
Yep.
Because this shot here, oh, it's so prone to error. I think it's a super difficult shot here. And look at, I think Lee's so happy she hit that over. She's like, wow, I got it over. It's good. And now you have the Kawamotos attacking, right? Because what does Kawamoto see here? Right?
They're off the line.
Space.
Yep.
Now here, I'm gonna go to bat for Catherine here, because what Catherine sees is Catherine's doing a good job. See how Catherine's looking at the ball, right? So she's looking down here at the shot that Lee's hitting. She sees that ball float and goes, uh-oh, right? So instead of just standing there and eating the ball, she takes a step back to try and defend against the impending Kawamoto attack. Allows her to basically come back and defend. This is just, I'm trying to stay alive.
Yep.
Sorry, she's not trying to win anything here. She's trying to stay alive. Works out okay for her. Now, I was curious about this. She didn't take a step over, but I guess she has enough balance, so that's fine. So we have the left-handed Kawamoto still playing off the line a little too much, right? I do like this idea, right? This is a really nice shot, I think. Because it's recognition of strengths and weaknesses. You don't want to play lead or a forehand, so you play it to her backhand, right? And plus, what's Lee going to do with this ball? It's going to hurt you. Probably nothing.
Right. And Lee has a tendency, when she hits that backhand, she likes to let it bounce a little bit more often than she will on that forehand side, right? So that's her, you know, if you're playing her, you already know that. Now she does a great job of coming back up to the line, but it may, again, this goes back to, can I force an error? Probably a little bit more on that side versus the other side.
Correct. And you're also not going to be subject to attack. That's the thing to me.
Exactly.
So here, Catherine Catherine's been dinking pretty calmly, right? But she comes in and then decides to maybe push the action a little bit, see what happens, and challenges. The good thing about this shot here is she challenges the Kawamoto's backhand side and then gets a little pop up there. The wind was crazy. That's nuts. But see the middle attack there again. What Lee does here is she sees middle, boom.
And what I'd argue with here is, again, so I really like, this is the first time I've seen how the Kawamoto sisters play. I think when they start to learn more about moving together as a team, because what I see on them, they got a lot of raw talent, but they were, as an example, in these 2 points anyway, they were out of position several times, which allowed Catherine and Lee to capitalize on it, right? There were a couple times some crossover steps, some turning perpendicular to the net versus staying parallel. When they learn how to defend that court a little bit better, these girls are quick.
Right. And apparently they're triplets is what I hear. I know they have a brother too, but I didn't realize they're triplets. So there's a brother who's a sick, good player and the two sisters. So yeah, they're very, very good players. So we had a question here, CJ, let me see if I can answer real quick. It's basically, they tell me not to step back from the line for defense. I love that question or comment because it allows me to explain something that I think is important, which is you have to play pickleball the way that makes sense for you to play pickleball. There's some sort of like rules in pickleball that are like no debate, like get up to the NVZ after you return serve. My students have heard me say that so many times they're tired of it, but that's like an inviolable rule of pickleball. But like how you defend, that's up to you. Like if you have really fast hands and you can just, battle, then stay up there and battle. If you need more time, then take more time. I take more time because I need more time and I defend better when I take a step off the line. So this idea that like you have to stay on the line no matter what, is not one of the inviolable rules of pickleball, in my opinion. What do you think, CJ?
I kind of agree with that. I think the other thing is, you'll see this. I can tell you off in mixed doubles. So in mixed doubles, and lately my partners have been like 20 years younger than I am. They've been young enough to be my son, so they're faster than I am. And my rule with them is you need to cover 3/4 of the court. If I'm going to play down, you're covering 3/4 of the court. In order to allow them to do that, I need to step back off the line just a little bit, right? But because they're so fast, I can do that. Would I do that with a player who wasn't as quick? Maybe not. Am I going to do that with my women's doubles player? Probably not. So the answer is, unfortunately, it depends, right? I mean, who's your partner? How do you feel? Those types of things. It's different in every situation. You got to find out what works for you.
Right. I mean, everybody plays differently. Everybody, some people have a better forehand, some people have a better backhand. You play with what tools you have. Now you can always try and improve. I'm trying to improve my counter punch speed by using the other hand to keep the paddle out there. So that's something I'm working on, but that's my game, right? I'm not going to suggest to everybody that's how you have to do it. So anyway, I think those are some really helpful points, CJ. Going after the movement, I think, is critical in any part of the game. Particularly at the MBZ, but any part of the game, the movement's important. The body flick is just a little technique you can try and bring into your game. You can use it off a bounce sometimes or out of the air. The idea is to get the ball into the body. And as CJ mentioned, the weakest is shoulder to hip on the dominant side. I'm pointing to my left shoulder and left hip because I'm left-handed. Be a right hand on the other one. And and then the attacking that middle. So if you see that middle gets open, so you see some space in the middle, jam that ball in the middle, because personally, I'd say I win 85% of my points with middle shots, not with angle shots, because the angle shots have wide. I don't like wide. I don't like out. So I go middle and just take out the wide. So what do you think, CJ? I mean, I think that's a pretty good wrap up on the 3 main topics we covered tonight.
I think so. We've got a couple of questions that came in. And so
sure.
Can we, all right. So one that came in from YouTube is Mike said, asked if you see much spin. And so, yes, at the non-volley zone, you're seeing more, you're seeing a variety of different spins. And again, all that's requiring me to do, the more spin that you see, to me, that means the more premium my footwork is, right? I need to be able to balance, and I need to be able to get lower to the ball in some cases and that sort of thing. So yes, the higher you move up in levels, the more spin that you would see at the non-volley zone.
But anything well, first of all, I don't know how I can see anything in this room because it's like pitch black back here. I don't know if everybody likes this Halloween look I have going here, but whatever. We'll sort this out. But the spin thing, what's important to me on spin is nice to add to your game. If you need to add it to your game, or if it's something that it's affecting you not to have it, then add it. But don't come to the game thinking that spin is going to solve like whatever's happening. And having a non-spin dink is perfectly fine. In my clinics, I show the students that I can basically do a push dink into a corner without any spin, and it's very effective. So don't think of spin as being like some sort of a cure-all thing that you need to have. Focus first on having a good sound mechanics on your strokes, and also understanding movement and kind of intentionality, where I'm trying to hit the ball, before you need to necessarily add spins to your game. But as CJ said, as you move up, and I would suggest to you this, I'm perfectly comfortable saying that you can play a solid 4.0 game, meaning you're winning medals at 4.0 with zero spins in your game. They put that right up there. 0 spins in your game. Okay. Now, once you get past 4.0, or, in some 4 you may have, but once you get past 4.0, it gets a little more difficult because of the types of attacks that are coming your way and the way that they can handle balls that don't have spin on them. But before that, I'm not a big fan of bringing spins into somebody's game prematurely.
Yep. I'd agree.
Was there one more question, CJ? Or
there was. There are actually 2 more questions. Let's grab this one first. Hello, Margaret. Margaret's over on YouTube. Margaret Dunbar. She's here a lot. So hi, Margaret.
Hola, Margaret.
When at the line, are your feet square to the ball or just shoulders and hips? I know what I'm going to say, but I want to hear what Tony has to say, because we may be different.
To me, again, this is personal preference. Your shoulder, your the action is here, right? So think of, I mean, I'm going to go military because I've read a lot of military in my life, but like a tank, right? The cannon needs to face what's happening, right? The wheels, the tracks on a tank don't necessarily need to face the action. Now, so if you're more comfortable with your feet like this and you turn, I'm generally okay with that. You know, as long as you're not turning too much and it's putting strain on you. I personally I'll slide my foot back. So I'll slide, let's say I want to turn this way. I'll slide my right foot back and turn my body. I think that's easier. But again, it's not like if you did it the other way, I'm going to be like, hey, what are you doing? You know, as long as you're comfortable turning like that. Plus, if I'm turning just a little bit, I might stay square. So it depends. But normally if I have to turn a significant amount, I'm sliding my foot back as I am now and then turning to the action. CJ, to you.
I teach turn your foot to the corner of the box. That's how I teach. So I teach you to line up with the back corner of the box if you're turning.
That's a great technique. It's a great technique. I wouldn't criticize it at all. It's a fantastic technique. And to me, you know, if you can have that technique, because what happens as you shift those feet, then your hips and shoulder naturally follow. It's probably because I've been playing tennis so long that I'm used to tracking the ball anyway. So, you know, but yeah, the foot technique is a fantastic technique.
And I also, on that, I do want to say that means you also have to be on the balls of your feet, right? Oh. I mean, you're not flat-footed here, okay? That's the place where I see most people really have a problem is they're very flat-footed.
And what I would say, CJ, on the flat-footed thing is that goes back to what we talked about in the Kawamoto point, which is stay active. In other words, just because they're not hitting the ball at you, right, or to your side of the court, doesn't mean you're not part of the action. You know, stay active. So don't just stand there with your feet planted and go, okay, someone's going to hit me a ball. Move. And then, you know, even if like the ball can't hit your partner, then move into a position where you can assist your partner, you know, or help the court positioning of the team.
Yeah, because one of my strategies is I'm gonna maybe go cross court dink. I'm gonna wait for you to go to sleep, which should be about the fourth dink, and then it's coming your way. And I might try that, especially in a tournament. I'm going to try that flick shot coming your way. I wouldn't do it as fast as Steve pulled the trigger. I'm not sure I'd pull it on Glenn either, but you know, I mean, I'm gonna try and lull you to sleep for a bit and then see if you've managed to stay with us.
Yep.
We got another question from Randall. So this is kind of interesting, maybe a tiny bit off topic, but I think this kind of fits in. One issue he has with rec pickleball is I play with partners who don't want to play at the line. I still play at the line because I want to work on my game, even though a big hole is open in the middle. So I guess he's probably looking for a little advice on how to solve that team movement issue in rec play.
I have clear advice on this, EJ. You ready?
What's that? Yeah, I'm ready.
I play back with your partner. You know, to me, I have people ask me, more extreme is when the player doesn't come in at all. So the partner actually stays at the baseline. What I'll do, and let's say like you're up and your partner's back on a return of serve, which is how it's supposed to be, right? And then they hit the return of serve and they don't come in. So they stay back. What I'll do next rally is I'll stand back with them. And then obviously they're going to look at me like, what's the matter with you? Why don't you up at the NBC? And I'll say, well, as soon as you get up there, I'm going with you. So because I don't want to get killed. So I'm not going to stay up there and just get hammered with balls, right? There's no sense in that. So I'll play back with them. And then if they want to play from back there, I'll work on my third shots or whatever, you know, just, I know you're going to lose the game, right? So you can't expect to win the game, but whatever. So work on your third shots, do something different, and then go play with somebody else maybe. But, you know, if to me, like standing up here and having your partner back here, that doesn't serve any purpose because the only balls that are coming to me up here are balls that I'm eating, and I don't like eating plastic. So.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm kind of opposite of Tony. I'm going to let that person be back there and I'm going to work on poaching, which will probably really irritate them. But okay. I mean, you might get the message if I get over and poach a lot of balls.
I think CJ, you
should come up there.
You're giving your partner way too much credit for the third shots. Because I'm thinking the third shots are going to be like head high of my opponents, and they're just going to be slamming balls into my chest. And I'm like, I hate that. I'll just be back with you. Anyway, so that's what I would do. I would suggest staying back. That'd be my suggestion. And then the other thing is you're going to lose the game, but at least you don't create what you mentioned, Randall, which is that gap. So you don't create that angle they can attack. You're at least both back and you can defend together. And maybe you can get your partner to come up slowly. I don't know, but that's a tough call. Rec play is a tough call. So
it's rec play. Yeah. We got one more question, but before we take this question, because I know we got to wrap this up, just a reminder, Tony is coming over on my channel. I'm looking over here because I got a calendar over here on Tuesday, October 6th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. where you can really kind of pick his brain and answer a lot of these questions. It won't be a Zoom feed. It's going to be a direct to YouTube feed. In fact, I think you're going to see a lot of me and Tony over the next, we've had a lot of fun working on this. So I think in the next month, you're going to start to see a lot of us doing some of these types of things together. So, all right, last question. We're wrapping this up. Okay, this is coming from Jazz Snare. I had to say that name. This is the YouTube name, Jazz Snare. That's pretty good, isn't it?
I like it.
When approaching the bet, I think it meant the ball. When approaching the ball, should we stop when the opponent begins to swing?
Yes, you want your split step is on contact. So basically, like as soon as you see your opponent getting ready to hit the ball, you know, around that time frame is when you want to make sure you turn towards the ball, like we talked about, right? And get yourself ready to receive the ball. If you stop afterwards, a lot of times it's too late. And remember, something that's really important that we forget about is there's a delay, guys, between this and this, right? It's not like you see it and all of a sudden your hand knows what to do. So you need to account for that delay. And that's so you split step, you get set, and that allows you to then be ready to receive the information of what kind of ball's getting hit, what side is it getting hit on, what I need to do, and things like that. So split step when the ball gets hit. Is that okay, CJ? Did I do good?
That's perfect. I couldn't have said it. I could not have said it any better myself.
I just wanted to get one that CJ was like, yes. And I was like, yes. And I'll go sleep tonight. I'll be good. So anyway, listen, I want to thank everybody. I apologize for the technical again. I'm just very embarrassed about it, but it happens. So, but I thank everybody for showing up. CJ, thank you very much for bringing us this great information. Lori, you're the best. Christy, you're also the best. Everybody's the best. So thank you very much for moderating tonight. If you guys like this kind of stuff, you know, with the rallies and things like that, you can reach Lori, Laurie, at intopickle.com. We have the Into Pickle Academy. We do a lot of this kind of work. I know a lot of our students are in the Zoom and also on YouTube. So, you know, it's a really interesting way to learn. It's kind of I know people say, well, I can't learn. I'm not on court. Not true. It's studying game tape just like other athletes do to understand the game better. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Stay well. See you next Tuesday.